The thing that made West Nile so difficult to deal with was the fact that it affected multiple species, humans, birds, horses, and in doing so, it required the cooperation of multiple agencies, all with, very narrow mission statements. The USDA basically does agricultural species, not zoo animals. The CDC only does humans. And so the animals that served as sentinels for what was to become a really important zoonotic disease outbreak that swept across the United States fell through the cracks. No one was responsible for testing them, and because they weren't of any particular economic interest, it was difficult to get people to agree to test samples, which is why I had to take a completely non-traditional approach to getting these samples tested, and I ended up working with the Army because they, of all the people I spoke with, were most attuned to the risks that we faced with emerging infectious diseases, and they did a superb job, and ultimately the human and the animal studies converged and we came up with a new diagnosis. The people in New York had been dying of West Nile virus, a virus that had never before been seen in the Western Hemisphere, and it was indeed the same virus that had been killing the birds. The scariest thing of all is that the birds have been dying for 2.5 months. And what you don't hear people saying, but what I've always taken to heart was, had those birds been appropriately diagnosed, correctly diagnosed in early June, I ask myself whether we would have had dead people in August. And I think the answer to that is no. We would have had time to prepare. But we still suffer the same weaknesses in our wildlife disease surveillance capabilities, and I fear that if we were hit with a similar zoonotic disease outbreak that presented in wildlife, again, we could very possibly miss that new disease.